If you offered me 200,000 a year to be a teacher, I would still say no. Hey, my name is Aman. I am 23 years old and I just graduated last year as well as got my teaching credential. I want to put into perspective of how it is entering teaching if you're thinking of considering that field, because I personally felt like I never really saw the truth or the jig of it or what it was all about until the later end of the program, which I feel is a big flaw. Unless, of course, you got lucky and you were able to get that hands on experience early on to where you could then make a true decision if this was something you wanted to commit yourself towards. But other than that, I did just want to make sure and kind of give my perspective and my journey from how I ended up going from wanting to teach, thinking it was something I wanted to do for the past 5 years of my life, to then graduating, seeing like, oh shoot, all I knew was education my entire life. What do I want to do now? And just for context, I am doing a post bac program right now where next year, hopefully, I will be going into med school to be a doctor. So if you're thinking of quitting teaching, um, maybe this is just another example that you can do it. You just got to put your mind to it. There's so many transferable skills as a teacher that you can use, and you know that. But unfortunately, a lot of society doesn't know that or fails to recognize that. So I can get how it gets hard. But besides the point, if you are someone that wants to be a teacher, don't let anyone change your mind about it. Don't do what you want to do ultimately with any profession, with anything in life. You already know that. If you want to do something, ultimately, you have the decision to do it. For me, it just happened to be that everyone that told me not to do it was right. So that's just my case, that everyone was right. But for you, it might be different. For you, you might enjoy it and love it. And if you do, I'm glad. I want people to enjoy the careers they're doing, and especially when it comes to teaching, because the kids need that, you know? Uh, you don't want to be just a miserable person and then try to fake it, and then it's just not good for everybody. But I want to start off and say that although, yes, I am 23 years old, you might be saying, well, you only did student teaching, which I left. Um, I quit in my mind halfway through, but I still finished it out of respect. But you might say, hey, you only did that. You have not actually taught for an entire year. You never signed a contract. Well, I've had a multitude of experience within the educational sector. So, most notably, I was a tutor in high school for over 5 years. At the high school level, I was a private school teacher for a private school where I looked over different subjects for elementary school students. I taught middle school students and I taught high school students. I was kind of like a floater. And at the same time, I'll get more into that later, but I also taught inside of prison facilities in the UK as well as in Hawaii, which funnily enough was 1,000 times amazing, better than any of the other teachings that I did. I'll get more into that later, but also I did my student teaching, of course, for a semester at the public high school level, and then finally, while I am doing my post bac, I am doing substituting across different high schools. But I wanted to get first and foremost started by saying that I had the most, I guess, similar ideal of why I wanted to be a teacher, such as all the other people that may give you the reasons for why they wanted to start teaching. And that was just a simple fact that I had always been someone who loved helping other people. I loved being that mentor for people, that guider for people. I always found myself getting added to Snapchat group chats in high school where 15 people would be in there from my class begging me to send videos explaining what's going on. I'd take my time, sweet time. I don't get paid nothing for that, and I would do it because I loved it. I loved helping people. I loved making their lives easier. And it was at a time in my life where I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. I thought about engineering, but I was like, what do I even know about engineering? Will I even love it? I thought about medicine, which, funnily enough, I mean, well, hey, I'm doing it right now, but I thought you had to be like a complete robot, top 1% in the world type of smart to do that. And ultimately, I got told by a lot of different people that, hey, I should consider teaching, that I'm a great teacher. I'm a great mentor to people. You should do it. And I think also, like many other people, when they go into teaching, they have that one mentor, that one teacher that they really looked up to and really appreciated and said, hey, I want to be like you. And that's how it was for me. I had an avid teacher who was amazing, exceptional. I was a 4.3 GPA student. However, I was a definite class clown. So he really taught me what it was to, be a man and go on this personal journey and kind of figure out what you want to do and your purpose in the world. So it did convince me to go into teaching. So I picked my degree to be in mathematics, and then I went on there to college. Now, that's where my first job was as well. The same high school I attended for 4 years, that same Avid teacher. Avid is a college readiness program. It's an elective that you take for 4 years in high school, by the way. But for those who don't know, yeah. So my Avid teacher, the same guy who was my mentor, he offered me a job, to be a high school tutor. And that was crazy for me, right out of high school, already have a job. So I picked that up. And to be honest, it was pretty well. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had a good time doing it. I felt like a mentor to a lot of these students, especially since I wasn't much older than them by any means. I just started college, and I had a positive experience. And I feel Avid really reinforced the idea that teaching could be meaningful and sustainable under the right conditions. And back then, I didn't really realize the idea that, hey, I'm working with a lot of goal orientated students who kind of have a sense of direction, or at least just some sort of academic discipline to want to do better and achieve better. So for me, that's how I already saw the bare minimum of students. I didn't really get exposed to the trolls. And you know exactly who I'm talking about when I'm saying the trolls. Especially in high school, I was always in the AP and honors classes, so I only ever heard about, troublemakers. I only ever word of mouth seen videos. So I honestly never really got that experience, which on the other hand can be a real double-edged sword as to the exposure of knowing what I was going to get myself into. And the job was good. The job was fine. I worked with 5 to 6 kids per period, just helping them out with math if they needed it to, or if they had questions about college, they had questions about writing things, scholarships, any of this sort. I was always there for them. Now, after that, I ended up also then working inside of the prison facilities, and it was an amazing time. I mean, some of the most respectful people I've ever met in my life, and they were just hungry for knowledge. My students were um, always attentive. They always respected whenever I needed to talk. They always asked questions. It even turned to a point where they had so many questions, I would take them home and gladly answer them and come up with solutions so I can bring it back to them. And I think it's just crazy when I tell you about afterwards. I come back from doing that, which is something that really taught me about, you know, what teaching looks like when respect and accountability are non negotiable. When it's something that's just set in principle, it is beautiful. You are able to do your job and you can just go home and then everything is nice. Then after that, I came back and I live in California, by the way. I came back and I picked up a job to do private school teaching, part-time job. The administrator happened to be a math teacher, so whenever she would go to her administration meetings, I would essentially take over the class, and it seemed like a really nice gig for me. The pay wasn't good at all by any means, not at all. It was literally minimum wage, but that's probably the point. None of you would go into teaching for the pay, but it it seemed like it was a good deal at first. I was essentially getting ahead of the game because I had just started out the teaching credential at the time, where most of my other peers, they never even taught in a classroom before. Like, yeah, they have worked tutoring or they have worked observing and stuff like that. They never actually got up and taught yet. So I felt like I was getting a head start to these people, especially since I had already taught inside of a prison facility. Now going and kind of expanding my toolbox to teaching in a private school felt really, really eye catching. And that's where sort of the problem started to arise. I mean, first and foremost, there were significant behavioral and bullying issues. I was so curious why, after a few weeks in, so many students were comfortable with talking to me about stuff going on, like the bullying they were dealing with, or just other things like that. I thought, I was like, well, hey, maybe I'm just that cool of a person. I don't know. It might be a mix of that. It was so funny. After a few weeks, I was getting the reputation from other students that didn't even have me. I was the cool teacher, apparently. But there was a significant bullying issue. And when I even offered to tell some of the students, hey, I'll go bring this up to administration. We can do something about this. I want to do something about this. They literally looked at me and they said, they're not going to do anything. Administrators don't do anything at all. And hearing that really starstruck me. I was like, not starstruck, it just struck me. I was just like, wow, really? So I gave it a go. I brought it up to the administration about this bullying, people throwing stuff at each other, harassment even outside of school by the same students to each other. And they were right. They didn't really do anything at all. But most that they did was they held a anti-bullying assembly where it was just a few slideshows and someone came in as a speaker. And meanwhile, while they were playing a video of a disabled kid getting bullied, the students were just laughing. They were just laughing. And I was just sitting there on the side, angry inside. I was furious inside. I was like, no way. And I even confronted some of the students. I said, like, there's a time and a place. But yeah, backfired. And I just felt that this administrative inaction, despite repeated problems, was a notable thing for me. And I felt, and I know that not all private schools are the same. There are some that obviously have their things together, well organized, well structured. And I don't mean to diss this private school that I'm talking about, but just for me, my experience, it just came off of the wrong foot. I know it is really hard to run a school, it's really hard to be an administrator. I can respect them in that regard. But for me, my experience, it didn't really align with my own morals and principles. It kind of just felt like when it came to the bullies, hey, you know what? They're a student. They pay for the tuition. I expel the student. I lose my customer. That's just how it felt like, in my personal opinion. And I did really realize how much, just in general, the classroom experience too. I mean, you want to talk about, let's pretend A is teaching. Meanwhile, I was doing B, C, and D, just trying to do classroom management, classroom management, classroom management, trying to get these kids, don't throw things, don't yell at each other, don't hit each other, don't throw chairs, anything you can imagine that has nothing to do with teaching, I have to deal with, I have to handle. And I kind of realized how much classroom success is mainly just about having classroom management and also having that institutional support rather than just having teacher effort alone. It got to a point where I felt like it was a successful day if nothing bad happened in the classroom. I wasn't even focused on learning goals at that point. It was awful. It was terrible. And the thing that sucks too, I mean, you've already heard it, right? I can go on and on about my praise of teaching inside of a prison, and I'm the complete opposite direction for that private school experience. So I thought it was just a one and done. I thought that that was just a bad coincidence to happen to me. So I said, you know what? I start student teaching next semester. The reason why I was only teaching at that private school for one semester was because we tried to make it a full year, but my college had said that if I want to do student teaching, it has to be with a public school. So I said, okay, no problem. Left the following semester and began student teaching at the very high school I went to and worked at as an AVID tutor. And to even make things more of an easier situation, I was student teaching under my own high school math teacher. So I was pretty much in the easiest light work situation to be in for someone that's going to do student teaching, because there was people around me who they had to go somewhere that was like an hour away. They had to do something with a teacher they never met before in their life that they ended up not liking, or like was super old school. I ended up being with a teacher that I really related to and really liked. He was a younger type of teacher, so it was supposed to be really easy for me. And arguably it was. I think if anyone else in my program had the same exact situation as me, they would have thrived. They would have thrived. I promise you they would have. But what I want to say is that teaching in the public school, it only confirmed for me that the issue I had in the private school was not just a temporary issue, it was a recurring issue. And I want to say that I felt like I always had a constant emotional regulation that was needed, regardless of any personal circumstances I had. The thing that I also respect about teachers immensely is any kind of issues you're dealing with in your life, you got to say goodbye to it and put it on your back while you teach. Because it doesn't matter to a kid if you're dealing with this and that or that and that. Yeah, there is a lot of empathetic students, but there are some that just don't take school seriously. You know, that's just how they are. And maybe some things are very serious to you, but to them, especially maybe at their age, they haven't really developed or matured. It's not for them. And honestly, it's also becomes that hard blush, blunt reality, harsh reality that you can't bring your problems to work. Can't. And I know in general people don't do that or try not to do that, but with teaching, it's especially hard because you are putting on a persona, you're putting on a character at a certain point. Um, Even if you are being yourself, to a certain point, you do need to be a positive, more positive person. And I always felt like in return, it combined with this level of anxiety that was driven by unpredictable student behavior. I was the chill teacher. I was the teacher that was real laid back. I never really tried to get people in trouble. If someone was doing something crazy, I try to work with them so that way no one would get in trouble. And even then, there was those troublemakers, those students where I felt like they were a ticking time bomb. I felt like at any moment they could disrupt the entire class, take away time from the lesson plan, and guess what? You're two lesson plans behind within a week, and then you've got deadlines to make up because hey, you've got the whole math department trying to see, okay, what part are you on? Oh wait, you're this behind. Why are you this behind? Oh wait, you're teaching this. Why are you teaching that? Why are you including this? Hey, all your students are scoring 88% average on the test. Meanwhile, mine are scoring 70. You just give them baby easy tests. All of these political things intertwined, meanwhile. Like, I thought I could just have my own classroom and mind my business. Apparently not. Apparently there's that whole aspect as well. Um, like if you think like you've done like these high school fights back in high school, these argument petty things, yeah, that does not change in the workforce at all. Does not change at all. It's still very much present and weird because you could be beefing with someone who's 30 years older than you. Fortunately for me, I didn't have to deal with that, but from what I observed from my cooperating teacher and the problems that other teachers were giving him. Now, what I would say again was even in a relatively easy setup, where again, I didn't have to make lesson plans. We had a workbook for the math where it essentially just gave you a lesson plan. All I had to do was present it on an iPad and draw while other students did it too. Even then, the work still felt unsustainable. I still felt exhausted. And maybe to a certain extent, I'm just a bit lazy, but I felt exhausted. I felt tired. And I kind of recognized that there's some teachers that have full lesson planning and curriculum ownership. And how do they do that? Because you got to also consider the fact that a lot of the work that I presented, over half of the students don't care about math. They don't care about what they're learning. And it's like I can only feel bad for the teachers that put so much effort in the lesson planning that they do just for a lot of kids to just not care. Matter of fact, I have plenty of examples. One of my best friends, she's a middle school math teacher. She does all these lesson plans, all these fun games that she's always telling me about, and she cries almost every other week to me because of these disrespectful students calling her a bitch, throwing a chair, getting mad, screaming in her face. She's written at least like 30 referrals, I believe. And she's also the same person whenever I talk to her about considering, like, is this really what you want to do? She always tells me, I love my job. I love my job. And you know what? Kudos to her. As long as she means it, it's a stressful job. I respect it. That's why I have the utmost respect for teachers. But for me, that's not something that's sustainable. I am a human being. I've had things happen to me in my life. I've had unfortunate setbacks and things of that sort, especially while I was doing student teaching as well. And it was very tolling on me emotionally. And it was just an enormous pressure to perform positively rather than to focus on teaching. Now, what I also want to talk about is I feel that with teaching in general, their job it increasingly centers on behavior management rather than intellectual engagement. And that's the main problem. I feel a large portion of effort only goes towards the students who are disengaged or disruptive. There were so many hidden gems and wonderful students that I met that ultimately I couldn't even give them most of my time. Most of my time was worried about some guy trying not to let off a stink bomb in class, some guy trying not to play a crazy video out loud in class. And yeah, I mean, the impact just ultimately felt indirect and constrained by systematic issues that were outside of my teaching control. I should just be there to teach and occasionally drop some bars of wisdom for these kids. That's not at all what's happening. And I ultimately think that kids nowadays just do not respect the profession of teaching. I mean, it was already a problem with older people, anyways. I remember anytime I tell people I want to be a teacher and have all these adults say, "Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?" Nowadays, kids don't even care. Kids do not care. Because my whole goal to be a teacher was to bridge the gap between teacher and student. And that has happened, but it has happened in a way where a student can feel like they can talk to you any way they want. And I don't know about you, but I grew up with principles where, it don't matter who the adult was, I need to be respectful and I need to just have this level of respect for someone. Unless, of course, they're crazy or saying something racist or something to me. But let me give you a story. When I was subbing, so this is about a month ago, when I was doing substitute teaching at a high school, and every single time I sub, let me tell you my game plan. Number one, I tell the students, hey, I don't mind if you use your phone. Just make sure that you are not loud. Then we're good. And that has worked successfully every single time. Every single time. Because I substitute at high school, so I don't have to teach. It's genuinely just a study hall every single time. And so I'm able to get that peace and quiet. And even when I sub, I still have high amounts of anxiety because I'm worried that, hey, is this kid just going to feel like he can mess with me since I'm just a substitute teacher? And let me tell you this, after every shift, almost every single shift, I've had a couple of students, they always come up to me and say, wow, you are the best sub I've ever had. Please be our teacher. Please be our sub, always. And I always look at them and I smile and I say, you loved me because I did nothing. I didn't do anything. And I remember this one girl, she had came up to me and she said, you were an amazing sub. There are some subs, some substitutes sometimes that tell us to put away our phones, to do this and that, and they really think that they can tell us what we can or cannot do when they're not even the teacher. And in my head, I was like, what the heck? And then I told her, I was like, well, when an adult is telling you to do something, they are a certified staff member. You should listen to them. But in my head, I already knew that this would be the opinion of some of these students. Some of these students genuinely think this. I just told you what someone told me. I can't make it up. I can't make it up. I promise you that happened. And even when you student teach, so if you're about to start student teaching, um, you will not be seen as an actual teacher, because you're not an actual teacher. So definitely, when you are a teacher, you might have an easier time. For me, my student teaching, I had a relatively easy time, and even then, I still got burned out. Even then, I realized I didn't want to do it because I could foresee what would happen in the future. And I I just think, and I don't want to necessarily dive super deep into these behavioral issues being tied into parenting and cultural shifts because of the fact that, well, I'm not a parent. But what I will say is that this does make me a lot more alert and more situationally aware that, hey, I want to raise my kid right. I don't want to be one of those parents that just has a kid for the aesthetic or just because they want to have a kid. Like, that's kind of crazy, man. I want to instill these principles, these same principles that I had from my family. I'm so lucky that I had a mother and father that taught me about these core principles, and it's really important for your kids to have these basic, what you think would be bare minimum is apparently something a teacher would love to experience from a student. And I'm just very concerned about dedicating decades to a profession trending in a direction that felt unsustainable. And teaching, it always made me question long term work life balance as well as a future family life. Let me tell you another story. When I went to at my college, they had like a meeting expo about how, this former student in the teaching program is now a teacher. How's her life going? And it was supposed to be like something that would motivate us and cheer us, right? She starts off by saying that she couldn't find a job, which, I mean, that's just a general market issue today, but she couldn't find a job. So she had to work at a charter school where she makes significantly less money than a public school teacher, which already is not a lot. She then said she deals with about 150 kids a day. And then she just drops the bombshell and says, so she decided she probably won't have kids. And when I heard that, I was like, I mean, of course it's your choice, but she said it to where it was because of teaching. But she was trying to portray it like, I have 150 kids already, and but for me that was like, a what the heck. And yeah, that also played a big factor in me reconsidering things. And I didn't quit because of poor performance. Like I said, I was well liked. I was pretty effective in what I wanted to do. I felt like I taught well when I was able to actually teach. And it wasn't impulsive either. This decision, it was informed by years of exposure across multiple different settings. And it's also not a rejection of me not wanting to help people anymore. I get that medicine is also very stressful, but I operate in stress. I like stressful things, but I don't like it in certain ways. I prefer the stress of having that high accountability and having that expertise and into having that intellectual analysis for things and diagnosing patients and helping them with care. The stress of managing 30 different kids at the same time and trying to get them to not scream like, 6, 7, all this stuff out loud, all these memes, not necessarily for me. Not really for me. And ultimately, I just feel like that it was not a lifelong role for me. And I think if you want to change your career path, if you want to do something else, please do it. I know society always writes off teachers. They always say, like, what can you do besides teaching? You can't, which sucks. It does suck because when I first quit teaching, I actually considered going into finance. I had a couple of interviews actually, and if I kept going, I probably could have gotten a finance role until ultimately I decided to just be a doctor. It's just about transferring. You have so many transferable skills. You have that management, that classroom management, which can be used to just manage people, project manager roles. You've made lesson plans. You've done those sort of planning out things. Uh, you have been able to what else? You've some people they'll use Excel, they use these different kind of software programs, stuff like that. You know how to work with these kind of things. You have these soft skills. You have these um, not even just soft skills. You have these hard skills as well. It's definitely possible to branch out and change things if you do want to change things. I just know it's hard. I know some people don't have the privilege of being able to do it because they have to make ends meet, which I get. Um, but just hold on if that's the case. Just hold on because you can change it. Because I know in a world where ageism is a big topic, people are always comparing themselves to other people, saying, especially me, I am guilty of that. I look at, people my age that are engineers and stuff and doing all these other things, and I'm trying to reinvent myself. But I would rather much do that now than be miserable for over a decade. And if you've been that person who's been miserable for over a decade, it is hard to walk away, but I hope at least something works out for you. Something. And what I'm trying to say is this isn't an anti teacher or anti student video. It's more so just questioning the structural inalignment between the profession and the people doing the work. You're not there to mainly teach. That is not at all the main thing that you are doing. Liking students and being good at teaching also does not guarantee sustainability. Because let me tell you, all the troublemakers in my classes, they loved me. When I was subbing and I ended up subbing at the same school that I student taught at, they found me and they were dapping me up and giving me hugs and stuff, and they were so excited to see me. And they were also disappointed and sad that I told them that, hey, I'm not going to be a teacher anymore. I quit. I'm just doing this right now to make some money while subbing and then pursue medicine. But you know, quitting it can be an informed and ethical decision. It's not a failure. You didn't fail teaching. It probably failed you, to be quite honest with you. Another thing to even make the situation more in hands of what was to come is I never really also had to interact with any of the parents. My teacher, my cooperating teacher, he mainly did that for me. So if you add that as well to the mix, that would be very stressful as well. And don't even get started on grading. I mean, grading in of itself, that was crazy. Grading as well. I mean, there is, I want to say, like, it feels like there's like 8 side quests going on at the same time when you're teaching. And that's why I'm saying that there's so many skills with teaching that are so valuable. You are a very valuable person. You're managing behaviors that are caused by trauma, poor parenting, systematic neglect, um, and there's little to no adequate authority or consequence. And I think the profession, it really shifts responsibility from systems and families onto individual teachers. I've seen the horror stories of parents telling teachers that, hey, you're supposed to control my kid after a teacher explains to that parent that, hey, your student hit me in the face. Lack of meaningful consequences as well. It just really undermines teacher authority. And I think that's also a reason why so many students are willing to challenge teachers because ultimately a student is gonna get protected for the most part, and so many grace policies they always translate into zero accountability. And I just feel that I felt like a sponge, man. I felt like a punching bag. I felt like I was just soaking up all of these burdens and things and trying to navigate it and figure it out. And then people telling me, well, you get summers off, you get this off. So why are you complaining? Why are you this and that? If even with summer breaks and winter breaks and spring breaks, a teacher still always complains, shouldn't that let you know that the job is tough? There's literally research out there that shows teaching is more stressful than some of what doctors do. The sad thing is too is that the same person in me who was very patient and very understanding with people, which I still am to a good degree, I also at the same time kind of learn my limits. And I do feel like there is very little space for grief, stress, and mental fatigue as a teacher. And I always felt like over time, I might just be stripped of that humanity, of that empathy that I always had towards people. Because the sad part is, respect used to be assumed. Now, as a teacher, you're negotiating for that. You're negotiating for some respect. I just told you, when I'm subbing, I give them a proposition. I say, I don't mind if you listen to music. I don't mind if you talk or use your phone. Just don't be loud. Don't be disrespectful. Don't throw things. And is it really worth it? That's what I just kept telling myself. And it wasn't. By the way, the cell phone ban, not going to work. Not going to work. The private school I worked at that I was telling you about, phones were banned. In my opinion, might be a hot take, I think bullying will dramatically increase when you do that cell phone ban in California. Because even if you remove the phones, you know everyone has a Chromebook, right? You know how these websites work. There's over a million different websites. There is always going to be something for a kid to watch a movie or watch sports or uh, play a video game on a computer. You're never going to get rid of phones or technology. So there really is no point. And I think as an educator, you should really ask yourself, does the modern teaching environment allow me to do my best work long term? But yeah, that was kind of my rant, I guess. And if you guys have any questions, perhaps, or anything to share, anything you agree or disagree, think I'm just full of BS and negative, let me know. I will say, like I said, there was so many students that I love and miss with all of my heart. So many hidden gems, so many bright people that I know will do good and great things. And ultimately, those same students that I absolutely loved, they were also the same ones that kind of helped keep the ball rolling and let me realize that ultimately I want to pursue medicine and become a doctor. I was always telling kids to pursue their dreams and follow their heart and stuff, and kind of in turn, I realized never did it for myself. So I will always eternally be grateful for my students. I will be grateful for even the ones that gave me trouble because it's a part of me. It's a part of my life. And, I hope that whoever's watching this could help you somewhat. Even if you disagree with this fully, maybe there's something out of it you can gain. But yeah, I'll catch you